traditionally is going to hand you each a piece of clay. And this represents you. And when you get this piece of clay, unwrap it, and in a minute she'll give you a marking pen. And with that marking pen, you will make a gash in your clay, a wound, a hurt. And then we're going to talk about how we deal with that hurt. When you have a deep, what kind of hurts can we have? What kind of hurt have you ever had?
Losing somebody.
Right, losing somebody through death or when they move away, you're big for them. That's a hurt. Can anybody think of another kind of hurt you might have?
How about you? How about when you fall down screaming?
Yeah, that hurts.
Yes, you can hurt yourself physically too, can't you? You can get a skinned knee or cut yourself or something like that, or get a bee sting. There are lots of ways. What are some of the hurts in your mind and your heart? Anybody think of one? If you get bullied, or if someone hurts your feelings by saying something rude, there are all kinds of ways we can be hurt. Now take your marking pens and make a big gash in your clay. That represents a hurt or a wound. And what are some of the ways we can deal with that hurt or wound? What do you do sometimes? You just put it behind you and pretend it's not there? You could do that. You could just close your eyes and pretend you didn't get hurt at all and never talk about it again. Is that a healthy way to deal with hurt? Probably not. What are some ways we can deal with hurt? You can take it right out of the plastic. And yeah, what are some of the ways you deal with hurt? When I get hurt, you know what I do? I like to talk to somebody that I love and tell them how I'm hurt. And they'll usually be very comforting. They'll put their arm around me, or they'll say, "Oh my goodness, that's too bad. I'm so sorry that you got hurt." So, if you don't put it behind you and just pretend it didn't happen, but you talk to somebody, how is that going to mend this hurt on your clay? What can you do to this clay to make the hurt go away?
It can make you feel better.
Yes, if you knead it. Do you know what knead is? If you push it and pull it and squeeze it, knead it, pretty soon that big gash will get less and less, and it will sort of sink into the clay, and you won't be able to see that nasty hurt again. It's important when we get hurt that we talk to other people, we deal with it, we try to understand it. If someone else has hurt us, we try to forgive them. And also, when we hurt someone else, what do we do? Maybe we don't even mean to. But if they tell us that we have hurt them, we can comfort them, we can apologize, say we're sorry, and that will help make their hurt go away. Anything you want to add?
I think the main thing is that hurts that are shared are hurts that are healed. So you can take your pieces of clay with your color in them, and you can work on them throughout the service today. And you can take them home, and that may help you remember that sharing is healing. You know, my colleague, Reverend Meg Riley, right now is traveling around the country on her sabbatical. She's preaching in various churches and exploring different parts of the country she hasn't been to before. And she recently visited Columbia, Missouri. And she posted a photo on Facebook of the words that are on the window in the glass doors that are on the entrance to the church there, the local UU church there. And this is what the words say. In the spirit of courageous love, we forge a community of radical welcome and deep connection that moves us together to heal the world. Wow. Let's just hear that one more time. In the spirit of courageous love, we forge a community of radical welcome and deep connection that moves us together to heal the world. Now, that's quite a mission expressed in very beautiful and powerful words. So as we're looking at yet another aspect of healing today, these words kept coming back to me because radical welcome and deep connection are forces that heal us, starting on a very personal level, but then moving out into the wider congregation, the wider community, and even the wider world beyond. Now, I've heard so many stories about healing in the context of Unitarian Universalist churches. For example, the story of a gay couple who finally finds an affirming religious home. It's the story of the former Catholic, former Latter-day Saint, former Baptist, former Jehovah's Witness, etc., who heals, who finds the wounds of their past healing and moving forward with love into a new faith that truly, truly speaks to their soul. It's the story of a person getting out of prison, who's rebuilding their life and seeks a place of acceptance. It's the story of an atheist who discovers that a faith community can offer a big tent where people of different beliefs and common values can sit side by side and work for the common good. It's the story of a family with different faith backgrounds who find a home where they're both comfortable and where their children are fully welcomed. It's the story of an African American soul seeking a liberal faith and finding a new spiritual home. It's the story of so many people, including myself many years ago. It's the story of many of you sitting right here in this sanctuary. But I go back to those words, radical welcome and deep connection. And I have to ask you a question. How radical is your welcome here? Seriously, how radical is your welcome and how deep are your connections? Truly. Now, I know that some of you have known each other for many, many years, and you indeed have forged deep connections. Your sense of welcome and your connection have propelled you into sacred service, caring for one another, as well as volunteering in the congregation and in the wider community, living your values, making a difference. But it's also true that some of you haven't been around as long, because new people find their way to Unitarian Universalism all the time and wander in these doors. I want you to know that we cherish every soul that walks in our doors. And yet we don't often know folks' stories, but we truly wish to offer that radical welcome, that truly radical welcome. So how are we doing on that? How are we doing on that? Because you know what? It's all too human when people get to know each other to gravitate toward our friends, to hang out with the people that we know. We do this because it's fun, it's familiar, and it's comfortable. But I have a newsflash for you. Church is not about that. Church is a place of radical welcome, a place of disrupting the typical patterns in our lives so that we open our hearts and teach new ways of being. That's what we do at church. And so I have some thoughts for you about radical welcome. In July, I mentioned the wisdom of the spiritual teacher Krista Tippett. You might have heard her radio program or follow her online with her program called On Being. Krista Tippett mentions the concept of asking questions with holy curiosity. This is what she says. She says, it's hard to resist a generous question. We all have it in us to formulate questions that invite honesty, dignity, and revelation. There's something redemptive and life-giving about asking a better question. And she says then, are we not of interest to each other? Well, of course we are. We're of interest to each other. But sometimes we default into well-meaning but very simple questions when we meet new people or interact with people that maybe aren't in our closest circle of friends. And so we fall back on simple things like, so, Shelley, where do you live? Oh, I live up near 5 Points. Where do you live? Oh, I live in Roy. Well, that was an interesting conversation. Really? You know, I mean, when you ask those kind of questions, you get that kind of feedback. And not only that, even sometimes a simple thing like that can feel like coded language because it's really a question about, are you from my neighborhood? Are you my kind of people? Etc. So you know what I'm talking about. And so we humans, we make things complicated. Sometimes with our even very simple ways of trying to extend hospitality to one another and get to know one another. But imagine now a conversation that includes some generous questions. Some generous questions. Questions that really do offer radical welcome and the possibility of deepening connections. Questions like this. What brings you here? What's happening in your life right now? With everything going on in the world right now, how are you doing these days? Or perhaps a question from our Quaker neighbors in faith. How is it with thy spirit today? That's how they would put it. You know, we all long to be seen and to be accepted for exactly who we are, whatever we're facing at the moment. You know, there's some other generous questions, especially questions that can offer healing, perhaps by simply acknowledging the state that someone appears to be in, as we notice that maybe someone is, their energy is down, asking, what hurts right now? What breaks your heart? What are you grieving right now? You can see pretty quickly that those kinds of questions would offer a very different sense of welcome and connection, whether it's people that you've never met before, or people that you only know a little bit, maybe that you'd like to get to know a bit more, or maybe the same questions for people that you do know well. So let's go back to that phrase that captured my attention. It starts off with, in the spirit of courageous love. The spirit of courageous love is exactly what we're called to cultivate. It takes some vulnerability, some courageous love to get to know each other and to extend a truly radical welcome. Anyone can say, hi, nice to meet you, glad you're here today. But it takes courage rooted in love to be compassionately curious, to ask some generous questions, and then also, importantly, to listen fully with generous spirit. I believe we do have it in us to be the embodiment of this kind of courageous love. This is true for all of us, whether we're new to this faith community or whether we've been here for a long time. These are the kinds of questions that help us get to know each other more. Now, you might be thinking, gosh, these are the kind of questions that somebody might get asked in therapy or something. No, I'm not imagining church as therapy. That's not what we're talking about here. But really, when we ask these kinds of questions, gently and sincerely of each other, we welcome their spirit as they fully are, their full humanity with their gifts and their flaws, with their joys and their concerns. When we are seen and heard in love, we begin to heal. Relationships have the possibility of moving into deeper places, and the whole community strengthens. And a stronger community not only takes care of its own, but reaches out beyond its walls to bring that love and that sense of justice and mercy out into the wider world. A community that leans on each other in a place of loving vulnerability is indeed a home of strong hearts and helping hands. Now, I have a little assignment for you. You know that. You know that I give homework assignments. I have one that's like very immediate. Starting today, during fellowship hour, I ask you each to reach out to a person you don't know, or maybe someone you don't know well, and ask one of those generous questions. Listen to their story and share yours with them. Offer that radical welcome. Deepen your connections with each other. And to help you with that, I have left the questions on the tables downstairs in the fellowship hall, so you can just glance right down there and see what those questions are, those generous questions. This is how healing begins. Being seen, being heard, being accepted, being loved. It is a gift of being shared in sacred covenantal community. Let's lavishly share that gift with each other in the spirit of courageous love, so that we can forge a community of radical welcome and deep connection that moves us together to heal the world. May it be so. Our hearts continue to be broken again and again as we see people of color killed by police. We now say the names of the people killed in the past week as a way of lamenting their deaths in solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. We acknowledge the deaths this week of Derek Brown, age 41, Syracuse, New York; Michael Taylor, age 44, Seattle, Washington; and Kirk Figueroa, age 33, Boston, Massachusetts. This week, we also lament the murder of Brandy Bledsoe, African-American transgender woman, age 32, in Cleveland, Ohio.